Hi, today we are diving into the meat of Eric Evans' domain-driven design. If you have ever felt like your code and your business requirements are speaking two different languages, this video is for you. We are covering chapters 3 and 4, how to bind your model to your implementation and how to isolate that domain so it doesn't get buried under technical debt. Let's elevate your architecture. In Chapter 3 of Domain-Driven Design, Evans argues that a model is useless if it doesn't directly inform the code. We have all seen those beautiful UML diagrams that sit in a wiki and never get updated. That's the opposite of Domain-Driven Design or DDD. In model-driven design, the code is the model. If you change the code, you are changing the model. This requires a ubiquitous language, a shared vocabulary between developers and domain experts. If your business analyst calls it a policy, but your code calls it a contract, you have already lost. One of the most controversial points in Chapter 3 is the idea of hands-on modelers. Evans is clear. The people who designed the model must also write the code. Why? Because if you don't feel the pain of implementing a complex model, you will create something that looks good on paper but is a nightmare to maintain. Conversely, if developers aren't involved in modeling, they will just build anemic objects that are just data containers without any real business logic. Now, let's talk about Chapter 4, Isolating the Domain. In a typical application, you have database calls, UI logic, and security checks all tangled together. Evans proposes a layered architecture to solve this. The most important layer is the domain layer. This is where the business rules live. It should be pure, meaning it should know about your SQL database or your REST API. By isolating the domain, you make it testable and resilient to technical changes. There are 4 layers in practice. Think of it this way. The user interface handles the how of interaction. The application layer handles the what. It orchestrates the flow. But the domain layer handles the why, the actual business logic. Finally, the infrastructure layer provides the tools like persistence. When you keep these separate, your domain logic becomes the heart of the system, not just an afterthought. Let's look at a real-world example. Order processing in an e-commerce app. The user interface is your checkout page where the user clicks place order. The application layer is the order service. It doesn't know how to calculate taxes, but it knows it needs to call the domain layer to do it, and then call the infrastructure layer to save the order to a database and send a confirmation email. The domain layer is the order entity itself. It contains the logic for inventory validation and tax calculation. Finally, the infrastructure layer handles the technical details like SQL queries or SMTP protocols. This separation ensures that your core business logic, the order, is never buried under technical noise. So how do you start? First, audit your project. Find where that business logic is leaking. Second, rename one thing today to match the domain language. And third, get your hands dirty with modeling. Let's keep elevating our craft. If you found this helpful, please like, comment, share and subscribe for similar content in the future. See you in another video. Until then, elevate.